thank you. That's really nice of you. We had a very short night this morning. We had in a hotel a fire alarm. So I only needed one coffee to be alive today. So that's good. Yeah, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right into it. So unfortunately, I need to wear these glasses for near view field, and that's very annoying because I'm doing these dead moves right all the time to see you. That's unfortunate, but we have to live with that. So a couple of things about me. So it's already starting like this. I love music. That's something that runs all my life. I love sounds, the web, education, creating tools, and I love open source because I think we are all standing on the shoulder of giants. Yeah, it's like when I talk to companies and they want to have everything closed, they don't understand that actually everything they do is still based on open source tools. And this is something that drives me as well. Some things about me. So I'm actually a very old guy. So already in the 90s, I was a techno DJ, was always broke. Promised myself if I ever made it, so get rich and famous, then I wanted to build music studios for people like me. So there wasn't a web, there wasn't software, at least not the way that we are used to nowadays. So so in my imagination, I built real studios with drum computers and synthesizers and mixing units and all these things. But things changed very quickly. I got no training. I have Abitur, which is like high school something, but I never studied or I wasn't really interested in education back then. So nowadays I usually think I should have learned a little bit more about stuff, but now we have AI and all these things, so that's good as well. We will talk about that later. So I started with Flash 4, that's like 1998-ish. And I got really good at it for some reason. So I always loved math and physics and, science in general. And that drove me to programming. And I got to be known for hacky workarounds. So I did basically a lot of things before I really turned 100% into music production. So I did some 3D engines and physics engines and games and all these things. But I was actually always waiting for some things that technology gets forward to a point where we can actually create a music stream. This is like the slide that needed to be, right? So if you're that old, then you all remember the glorious Flash days. And I don't want to say back then everything was better than today. That's definitely not true. But things were, at least in my understanding, there was a huge creative community and there was a lot of exchange. And I don't know if this is still happening today, so maybe you can tell me that. It feels like it's very... there are a lot of different places where people talk about very detailed stuff. Well, back then, the community was basically talking about everything at the same time. So game development, physics, and hacky workarounds and all these things. So everything felt very new and exciting. So every day when I woke up, I was looking in back then, what would do, a lot of block aggregators and seeing what people built, and I was like, okay, I need to build that as well. And I need to do it better or differently, or I can use that for an idea that was popping up. The web felt like a huge playground, basically. And this is something which I really miss today. But if someone can catch me up with a few websites that I should check out, then please come to me. So one thing mentioning, there was no real sound API. You could just play static files. So something like that. Can I get some audio on the laptop? Or is it me? So basically, that's all we got, right? Very simple, just an animation, just being a bit goofy. A little bit later, we had Flash 5, and we figured we could actually start a lot of loops at the same time, and then handle them with, say, volume, so we can basically mix stuff. So that was in 2001. That's 25 years ago. That's insane. That's older than my daughter is. And then later in Flash 6, we got an on-sound complete event. So we could actually track when something stopped playing. And people started making hacks around that, like playing a very short loop and then having a trigger where we could start new sounds in a very precise way. So this is, by the way, this is a Ruffle flash emulator in WASM. So it doesn't really catch up 100% with the hack, but it's good enough. So you could do more like sequencing stuff, which was back then like unheard of, or well, at least it wasn't possible, right? Yeah, and then, so what is digital audio anyway? So I was used in Flash 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You could just import files and play them back. So basically, it was a static file that you imported, and then you had a bunch of numbers that were sent to the sound card, but you had no way to manipulate or even create them by yourselves. But why? It's actually super easy, right? So it's just a bunch of numbers you have to create in a very fast pace. And this is what I did back then. In 2005, the Flash 9 player introduced a way that I could basically create a byte array which contains a SWIFT file, a Flash movie, and load it into memory without getting it actually from the net. So this was like the first hack where, well, at least for me, that was the starting point of having some kind of web DSP, which is short for digital signal processing. So we generate samples, we put them in a byte array, and then we changes that in a sound object in memory in a SWIFT file, we load it back in and play it again, and we do it in a very fast pace. So basically, when we change something in the stream, it gets as fast as possible to the sound card. So the first thing that we did was collaboration with UI Ebert, where we created an Amiga mod player. And that was quite fun because we started in the morning and we ended up, we started in the evening and we ended up at 10 o'clock in the morning hearing Super Mario for the first time. And it was like, Jesus. And that was all, he was in a different city, but we had a very strong urge to hack ourselves because we had the feeling that we are really, so on the edge on technology. But actually what we were listening to is this. So if you have seen that, it is from '94. It's more than 30 years old. And it was back then running on a Commodore Amiga. So that's a long time ago. And I did more things that I couldn't do before, like sequencing stuff. That's called the tone matrix. We just plot a few things. You have a fluid simulation beneath, which doesn't actually add anything to the sound, but it looks nice. And so on. Or I was thinking of mixing up physics and sound. So I could generate a few cycles in here. And when they touch, they basically play a sound and reverse their grow rate. And this can be very soothing. So let's try something else. Or you can create a different scene in here. Yeah, that's quite nice, because you can basically, thank you, yeah, sequence tone generation at very specific times, and that wasn't possible before. And from there, unfortunately, I couldn't get these guys to run. I created a Roland 909 emulation, which was like so much fun to do. I love this machine, and there was actually, well, the drum machine to produce techno till today. Everyone wants to have one of these guys, and they cost like, I don't know, if you get one used, be happy to have it below 5,000 euros or something. And yeah, and above is the small synthesizer, and they were actually working, and they were direct precursors to Audiotool.com, the company that I then worked for, having a huge plan, right? So everybody should be able to make music. So that's then the long story in a very short list, right? So I was working for 16 years for Audiotool, and I brought all the ideas actually with me, and the technology and all these things. And I was starting in Berlin, moving to Cologne, and I was so happy because I got paid for basically doing what I always wanted to do. And yeah, but as you can see, I don't read at all. You're faster in reading than I could speak that. But basically, it didn't turn out well. After 16 years, there was kind of an escalation going on. So I was basically expressing, well, my thoughts about how the company is run, and that we need more developers because we were just 2 people feeding like a community of, well, 2 million at the time where I left. And yeah, doing that wasn't a good idea. So all these people that from the management I worked for, or where I had the feeling we had a friendship relationship. So this is the thing you can take home with you. Be very careful with all these handshakes, agreements and stuff. They don't last long enough if you are on a long-term project. So if there is something coming up and you express yourself and you have the feeling things are not running very good, people might change and go 100 degrees in the other direction. So this is what happened. So my contract got terminated, and yeah, it felt very depressing, right? So 16 years working on something that was my baby, it was my thing to do, and all of a sudden other people are doing that, and yeah, and I was sitting there, and even my promised shares were like, we don't care. So, and yeah, now I'm suing them for 2 years now, which is crazy, right? So things can turn out completely different. So I was taking a step back then, a huge step back, revisiting all decisions I made in life, maybe even. And yeah, I try to remember why did I actually start with Audiotool? Well, what were my thoughts in the first place? And then I figured that these goals never changed, actually. And that was actually the reason why I got displeased with the whole situation, because nothing turned out as I thought it would be. And it's not about money and stuff, like, right? So it's more about, I wanted to go into education, I wanted to have it open source, all these things, but if you work with people that are more in business, then they say, no, we need to have everything closed. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the getaway here is I was mostly embarrassed by my own poor judgment. So I was working for 16 years. Many people could just say, why didn't you leave? Well, it's not that easy as that, right? So you're working on your thing that you brought to life, and then it's really hard to say, okay, I'm just stepping out. So I needed this break. I needed this termination of my contract. And then what else? I was so angry, right? So at these people, I felt so unfairly treated, but that's okay. I actually turned that into work. And every evening, I was actually writing a plan for the next day. When do I going to eat? When am I going to have a walk? When I'm going to work? So I really needed that, right? So this structure back in my life. And from there, actually, things got better. So I turned spite into termination, which is, yeah, that's a good thing. So no bitterness, it's all good. I'm fine. That was the best thing that could happen to me. I was destroyed for a few months, definitely destroyed. But, yeah. There you can see it. And yeah, reclaimed what you always believed in, right? So this is what I did, basically. And this is what I then did. So I created something that I think is definitely right, that what I always had in mind. So I needed something where actually everybody can make music for free. It should be open source, because if nobody owns it, nobody can steal it. So easy is that, right? I want to merge education and fun. So students are usually used to borrowing software. Why is that? There's no reason for that. So everything that I enjoy, a student would enjoy also, I guess. Data privacy is a priority from the start. So there are no accounts, no subscription, no cookie banner. So you just go on the website and you download like 0.5 megabyte of code and you can start right away. So it boots up in like 200 milliseconds or something. So there's no barrier that keeps you from creating music. There's no AI music generation. So I want to go into schools, thank you. I want to go into schools, I want to go into universities, and it doesn't make sense if people are actually using AI to prop their way to a finished or final track. There's live collaboration, that's something that I had on my list for virtual classrooms. And taking it step by step. I was so annoyed by the management always saying, yeah, if we, or if I, or my second employee in law, I would just say, if you do this feature, then we can go this, and then we can collect millions, and blah, blah, blah. I don't care anymore. There must be a different way. There must be a different way without investors, without looking at millions of dollars or euros to make a company. And I think I can prove it. I'm constantly talking to musicians. I'm constantly talking to music teachers. And that's always a good idea, because these are the people that I eventually work with these things. And I was going to find some ambassadors to help me spread the news. So I have these guys. So there's Eric de Clark, which probably a couple of people still know from disco to disco. And there's Polarity, which is a nice guy doing YouTube content. There's Daniel, who's a music professor, as well as Marco Kuhn. He's also a music professor in Berlin. And Damien Padera is someone who's really into open source and yeah, more on the social side, I would say. And these guys are doing a great job. So if you look at Polarity and the T-shirt he has on, that's actually the Bitwig website. That's like, it's not a competitor. It's like proper desktop software. But I like that so much that he sniffed in openDAW, which is, by the way, the name of the product I'm just presenting. I just figured that I don't actually write that anywhere. It's coming later. So reactions, that's like the typical internet, right? I don't care. It's just for fun, right? So impressive, but who is it for? I don't know. I can think of millions of people, but if he can't, so that's not my problem. Those are probably the last thing I want running in a browser. Yeah, that's fine. Why sharing this information? I don't know. So I don't get this, blah, blah, blah. The core needs to be in C++ or Rust. It needs to be. Why? Who is saying that? I don't know. So fuck them. I'm doing it anyway. So here we go. That was the first day. So, and this is something you can maybe take as something, as a suggestion with you as well. Start documenting your stuff. It's so much fun to look at this 2 years later and thinking, oh Jesus, it looks so embarrassing. And but things, right? So you need some numbers that are monospaced, and you keep adding stuff and moving stuff and putting in more shades and colors and first plugins with a little bit of here, some components, a mixer. So things were coming together quite nicely over the month. And that's a modular system that I'm going to focus on probably in the second half of the year. And content editor, something to create and modify nodes. And you can actually take every panel and put it on a different monitor, which is also nice. And this is how it looks today. So there's basically everything there, what you need. And it just took me 2 years. And I think this is something that I also need to understand, that these 16 years, they weren't pulled away from me, or they wasn't taking anything from me. I learned so much. And not that I'm thankful now for these guys. Yeah, that would be a little bit of a stretch. But yeah. So I could take that and create an online DAW in basically no time. So where is it today? So it's online now. You can basically go on openDAW.studio and start creating right away. I have 2 commercial openDAW SDK consumers, so I did not mention saying that all the technology that I'm using, a lot of libraries that I created, they are all, of course, open source, and I put them into on NPM. Oh, there's a slide later for that where I explain it better. But there's also a commercial license, and I have 2 companies that are paying me, and that's enough to pay the rent and all these things, so I'm quite happy with the outcome. Still constantly talking to musicians and music teachers, and actually next semester there is a course in the Cologne University of Music and Dance where openDAW is the software to start with. And that's like, Jesus, yes, it's working. So the official release is then in September. And these are all the features, just to show off. So there's a lot of things that you can do with it. Maybe like a few honorable mentions is live rooms, which is basically the live collaboration. And when you do that and you record audio, actually everybody in the room will get the same samples that you uploaded or recorded with your voice or guitar or whatever. But nothing touches my server. So data privacy, again, that's like a focus. So I'm doing WebRTC. And this is where AI really helps me, because these are things where I usually would need to talk to other people. Sorry. No, I love to work with other people, of course, but yeah, it took me like 3 days to do that, which is just insane. We did live collaboration in Audiotool. It took us a year because we had no libraries and all the things that you have nowadays. So, yeah, and a lot of more things that is there. So what can you do with it? So let's play a track. Oh, sorry. So, thank you. So obviously, in the hands of a real musician, you can really do some music with it. But you can also write code in it, which is quite nice. So there's a short example on that. So that was playing the guitar in dry. Now I created an audio FX, which is called Werkstatt. And you can just write some JavaScript inside the application, compile it, load it on the audio engine. So just with a few lines of code, you can create a distortion effect for your guitar, for instance, but you can do so much more. There's one for sequencing, there's one for actually creating an entire instrument, and there are also starter prompts for AIs, for people that do not know how to code. And it's just like an AI talking to another AI, explaining how the thing works, and it works pretty well, actually. So yeah, and there's another view that you probably know from YouTube. If you want to learn a piece of piano, then you can just import some MIDI, and then you get this view. And this works with every project, of course, right? It's just a view. And you can scroll to the So this is one of the libraries that I did from the very beginning. So I did not want to work with React. I cannot really stress that enough. It's the worst framework I've ever seen, and I don't know why it is so popular and people are just falling for it. Jesus Christ, it's like, it does so many things that you do not see, and you want to see the things that are important to you. And especially if you're doing a music application. You don't want to waste a lot of CPU cycles on a framework doing things that you can do so easily by yourself. So on the right side, you see it looks like React in a way, right? But what it doesn't do is actually evaluating the function all and all over again when some dependency are changing. So it's just one call. So as it should be, right? So this is how I learned programming, and it should be like that. So maybe that's the old guy speaking, but still, yeah. So you need to basically do HTML updates, which is super easy because you have some functions like on init where you get a reference to the element that has just been created, blah, 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 and then you can basically listen to a model and do a text content change or a class name change. It is much simpler than React. There's another library which is called the libbox, which is basically a graph structure where I store everything. And there's a nice view on that. That's actually a track, a techno track to be precise. And you can basically discover how the data is organized in there. And I use that actually for debugging, because the idea is that there are no isolated groups in there. They should all be connected to the root. And yeah, sometimes there are weird effects or a bug, and then I actually open this view to figure out what's happening. Why is there no edge and stuff like that? So if you zoom in here, that's an automation, for instance. So this is a track, has a value region, and from there, collection, value event, and a curve. So everything is basically boxes where fields can point to other fields. That's pretty much it. But it makes it so easy to extend it. So I started implementing the first format like 1.5 years ago, and it's still the same thing. I never needed to say, oh, sorry, all your projects are broken now because I changed the format. No, I'm just attaching stuff. Can be so simple, actually. So this is the same project now rendered with Shader Toy and audio. So, thank you. I need to hurry up a little bit. So openDAW can also talk to your gear. So you can basically plug in a MIDI device in both directions. So if you have a MIDI keyboard, then you can play instruments in openDAW, but you can also stream MIDI to a device. And this is my new desktop guy modular synthesizer, which is really nice. And what I'm doing is basically I'm sending, so I created a script node which was just creating ambient chords. And I have two instances. One is basically playing like soft pads, while the other one is actually running an arpeggio, sending to the synthesizer and back into openDAW. And you can even add effects, and you still have a latency below 20 milliseconds, which is just insane. That's not my work then, when it comes to latency and stuff like that. That's what the web audio API is actually capable of. So let's have a listen. Thank you. So the idea is with the SDK you can build your own DAW, right? So if you're a developer, wipe coder, doesn't even matter. There's just one line you have to add to your package dependencies, and then you get all these things, right? Including basically all the devices, all the features that were on the list. And yeah, it's tree shakeable, so if you just use 10 features, the rest doesn't get included in your file. So that's also good. Yeah, give that a try, because people are already doing that. So there's riffle.studio, and they created in basically no time an entire DAW, which is really neat because it has a huge desktop where you can place actually different instances of openDAW projects. So in the bottom is one, and there's one up, and you can basically take things from there and put it up, or you can extract it to a new one. So this is a completely different way of actually interacting or collecting ideas and then merging them together in a new project. There's a lot of AI, of course. That's how things are working now when you have a commercial company. But I think they did it in a good way, so it's not basically creating a fully fledged track, it's just creating, like, do you need a guitar loop? I will create one for you. You can put YouTube videos on there, covers or lyrics and stuff, so that's something that I really find interesting. Yeah, and the cool thing is that everything they need from me is basically everything I need from myself, because we're basically building the same thing with different UIs, right? So yeah, it's a win-win situation. I get some money, they get features. And even I could, in this wipe-coded presentation, very quickly set up something. A little bit of FX, reverb. Okay, let's keep it at that. Just a few things about AI. I had a lot of talks with some of you guys already outside, and there's a lot of different ideas on, is it a good thing, is it a bad thing? I think it's a great thing. When it comes to coding, at least, all the other things, there is a lot of going on, of course, and that's not my job to talk about these things. But actually, 15 years ago, I can remember when we started at Audiotool that I figured we are writing like books of code, literally huge books, and that was crazy to me. I felt like something is off, so we should actually talk to the computer, and the computer should code for us. And I just recently realized that that's actually happening right now. So we are talking in natural language to an AI, and it's coding for us, which is actually great. It lowers the barrier for other people to join the club. But it also, of course, for the people that are now developing, is a little bit weird that a lot of wipe coding, also not very good production code, is coming into the world. But this is how things are right now. So I think it's okay. So just a few things. So I'm usually making a plan, and I'm documenting everything. And I ask the AI to relentlessly ask me questions, which is also very good to figure, did I actually thought the whole feature through? I make multiple dry runs. that's actually a good thing. And then I'm usually saying collect all the issues on the way and put them in the documentation so you can really see, oh, it told me it is fine. But then when you do a dry run, you get a lot of information that actually it wasn't thought through. And I do that like really multiple times, like 5, 6 times or something. Yeah, read the plan, never trust an AI, sure. They are doing weird things sometimes. And yeah, implement meaningful steps that compile and can be reviewed. This is actually like a sentence from before AI, right? It's the same thing. So it's demo time. Basti, looking forward for that one. So we prepared something. So just a quick, if you want to take the slides with you, make a picture now. You can check out the code. This is Basti. I was actually asking Mark if he wanted to play the guitar, and he said, no, there's actually a much better guy for that, and I'm really happy that you do that. So let's see what fails today. So first of all, I can just close that, right? Okay, this is a dry signal going into openDAW. But in openDAW, you can basically say, I want to route it to, so monitor it with effects. That's actually the same thing I did with the synthesizer, but the latency is so good in browsers nowadays, it's 6 milliseconds, which is kind of insane, actually. So let's add a little bit of reverb here. That sounds nice. Or with the setting before, add some delay. Okay, should we spice it up? All right. So this guy is, I did not program that. It's just an insane technology that some people created. It's open source as well. And it creates a neural network which emulates an amp, but a real one. So when I turn that on, you will hear that it's even doing the noise. Yeah, so, oh, geez. Okay, that's cool. Then let's have a backing track running and see what you can do on that. Yeah. That's it. I'm done.